have the best loyalty program in the world, but if that one interaction with the customer is poor, there is no such thing as a retention program.
We're in a time where there's a lot of skepticism about retailers and brands and all the big platforms having our data and using that to sell things to us.
The biggest fundamental thing for product recommendations is giving clarity on as a customer as to why they're being recommended that product.
How is that being adopted by the staff? How do you bridge that gap in the sense of, if I think of in-store staff, they have a million things that they need to be doing.
There's a bit of a push and pull element to that where you don't want to make it too easy for a customer.
Welcome to today's episode of the Retail Spotlight. Today we're speaking with Jonathan Haywood, who until recently was heading up all things loyalty and customer insights at Holland Barrett. We go deep into how tricky personalization can be in a highly regulated industry, such as health and wellness, a lot of insights about the industry itself, and some cool tips and tricks of how retailers can optimize in very simple but effective ways the adoption and usage of their loyalty programs. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome to the pod, Jonathan. When I think about loyalty and the whole space of customer retention, one of the most compelling programs that comes to mind is Holland Barrett's loyalty program. I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but I imagine you're probably one of the biggest programs in Europe, if not the world. And so today we'd love to hear from you about your journey through that experience, creating that, driving its growth, but also your experience in the customer insight space as a retail customer insights expert. So welcome to the show, welcome to the pod. And before we get started with any of my many questions, would be great if you could just briefly introduce yourself.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Hi, Mitul. I am Jonathan Haywood, former director of a few things at Holland Barrett. So I was looking after digital trading, our customer retention strategies, so mostly around us loyalty and CRM programs, and also customer transformation, particularly where it was fed into digital and marketing and customer teams. So really sort of a wide remit where I was balancing a commercial hat from a digital perspective with a sort of marketing and retention hat as well. So a little bit different to what you would normally see. And then the other element to that was really trying to connect all of our experiences through an omni-channel experience for a customer, and really getting to tie our digital and retail operations closer together so that a customer felt they were dealing with Holland Barrett as a whole rather than any constituent parts.
Awesome. You touched on a few interesting things that I want to dive into, especially the last thing you mentioned around customers perceiving a brand to be a brand regardless of the channel, regardless of the context, and having that same experience. I feel like that's the holy grail at the moment when it comes to retail. And there's very few retailers and brands that have managed to achieve that successfully. Maybe you can shed a bit of light on the journey to getting to that point. And one thing I'd also definitely love to hear more about is how wearing those two different hats, on the one hand, the commercial piece, on the other hand, the retention role, may have even helped this, if you think so.
Yeah, let's start with the first thing. I mean, there's nothing more annoying than I actually tend to find it more with sort of finance and banking areas where you can be talking to the insurance team and then they want to pass you to the other insurance team if you've got home insurance and car insurance, and they can't deal with all of your aspects in one go. And that tends to happen when you've got a business who has separate customer accounts for a single person. And back in the day, Holland Barrett was no different, with just the way that it had started to expand its operations. When I joined there nearly 11 and a half years ago now, there were really quite disparate teams and functions so that we had a loyalty program, and the team that set that up did a fantastic job. They got participation up really high. We got loads of people signing up to it. So the acquisition of and use of the loyalty program was actually really, really strong in the first 18 months. And that's all credit to those, the people that were running that and set that up. But what they created was a customer account for loyalty, which was separate to, at the same time, 11 and a half years ago, our website that started to gain some momentum in terms of the participation and mix of sales and revenue that website was having, but it worked on its own digital accounts. And so straight away you had 2 accounts, then you'd have accounts in customer service and various other disparate parts. And it's often the way that, retailers, but actually I think any organization historically started out. And I think we all sort of look at more sort of startup digital pure play and think, wouldn't that be lovely to be in that place where it's they're starting out with a single account and they know what they're doing. And it's true that I think a lot of retailers and a lot of other organizations as well have struggled to start to stitch that together from a historical position. And the way that Holland Barrett has been able to do that is effectively it wasn't able to remove all of those databases and just put one in. It's just not that simple. So what you tend to do is, you create a single customer view layer over the top, and that's what it's been doing over the last couple of years. We've had it for quite a while, but as we continue to grow out further elements of our proposition, you start to get more customer IDs. So the app is another good one where the app was being built. We were starting getting IDs through the app. Was that being tagged appropriately? How are we measuring browsing sessions, particularly when a customer is not signed in? Can you tag that back to the customer that you do know via their IP or any other GDPR approved way? And so our data team has been working on that and continues to work on that as more data flows into the business through different channels. You can build in the role of social into that, et cetera, et cetera. And I think, as the rules around first party data come in, that will accelerate all of that happening through the business. But I think for us, we've managed to do that. We've managed to get that to a layer where we can really start to personalize our customer experience across all of our channels. So the great thing is you get the foundations in place, and now it's about trying to activate that. And I always think that, if you can't activate from the foundations, then don't build the foundations. If you haven't got the case studies to be clear on why you want to do all of that, then don't invest in trying to create great architecture. For Holland Barrett, it's actually, there's a very clear reason why we would want to do that. And I think it's really at the core of the brand's purpose and vision, really, which is around, the brand purpose is trying to looking to add quality of years to life. So it's all around this idea of trying to improve, not necessarily improve their lifetime on the earth, but improve their quality of years through improving their health. And part of that is through the products that Holland Barrett sells, but that's clearly not the only way that a customer or a consumer can improve their health. We all know that, great diet, good exercise and good sleep is, the cornerstone. And we don't sell sleep. We sell sleep products that can help you to sleep, but we're not selling beds and we're not getting you to bed on time. And so, the whole purpose of what Holland Barrett is trying to do is it is trying to be a sort of trusted partner for your health and wellness. It's only going to be able to do that if the trust element is first and foremost there. I think consumers are, we're all bombarded with communications from all sorts of retailers all of the time. It just annoys me because I think I'm just not sure if they really know me. And as soon as you start to erode that trust element, particularly in a health and wellness space, particularly for a retailer who's trying to do more than just sell you stuff, that's a problem, and that's a big issue, and that's not something that is perfect at Holland and Barrett yet, but it is absolutely something that is core and fundamental to the way that the business is trying to go to improve that trust, which then gives permission for a retailer to talk to a customer about more than just the things that they sell, and genuinely talk to a customer about things that can help you. And that might not result in a sale for Holland and Barrett, but it will result, and that's what we believe, it will result in a connection with a customer that goes deeper than just, you're a shop that I sometimes go to, or a website that I sometimes go to. So, that kind of building out of that single customer view has been long, and it still goes on. We've still got some legacy systems floating about, and the tech team have done a great job in removing a lot of those. But there's a couple of core ones that still linger on, and will probably be there for about another year. And that holds us back from doing a lot of the cooler sort of authentication elements that you can get to with a better sort of loyalty and customer account. So we'll get there. That'll unlock pretty much all of it then, and we'll get to a proper single customer view where you can actually start removing those additional layers that you put on the top, because your base layer is the sort of golden key. And so that's where we're getting to, and it's been
the holy grail.
Yeah. And like I say, that there's always a new bit of tech, or there's a new bit of data that you want to connect into that single customer view from a third party, or from certainly retail media and marketing and elements like that. So it will, it's forever building, particularly for our data and architecture teams. But it's going pretty well.
There's a lot to unpack there, and I really liked that you touched upon a lot of these topics, because the example you gave is also one of my favorite examples for why personalization tends to fail, where it's often treated as just another way to upsell or cross-sell something, whereas the way I've seen personalization succeed is treating it more as a relationship, where you're not just earning the right to give me something, you're actually buying, you're not just buying the right or earning the right, you're actually winning my trust in the process. And from a consumer's perspective, we're in a time where there's a lot of skepticism about retailers and brands and all the big platforms having our data and using that to sell things to us. And I think, especially in the context you mentioned, where there's a stated purpose of helping me improve my quality of life, that automatically eases it a little bit, because it's like, well, if they give me a recommendation, if they offer me something, whether that's content, whether that's a product, whether that's a service of some kind, I can trust that there's that underlying intention of helping me live a better quality of life. Not every brand has that position, so that's a bit harder for them to do. But even without such a, let's say, noble intention behind it, one of the things that I think brands struggle with is exactly that question of what is personalization and what should I be giving my customer, right? And what I'd love to hear a few more examples of from the Holland and Barrett context, for example, is what does that look like today, right? So what's the opposite of the shoe versus shoe example that's been a big win for you guys?
Yeah, a personalization within health and wellness is particularly tricky. All the insight that we've had from customers shows that it's very, very individual. We could both have the same health and wellness goals, but the way we go about them can be extremely different. We could both have the same health and wellness ailments and problems that we're trying to solve, and again, the way we go about them could be completely different. And that individuality is a real struggle. And the best things we've been able to do is when we've been able to clearly ask a customer, what are you interested in? And that's not too bad. We can do that in a digital space, but the majority of our loyalty customers, the majority of our marketable database are customers who are shopping in store with their loyalty card, and so we're looking at ways to capture that in sort of two-way data capture elements. So a good example was earlier in the year we had a gut health campaign talking about really the gut health and the microbiome being core to a lot of your health and wellness. It's quite well known these days, but still quite new, I think, in terms of the consumer psyche. And we just asked very quickly, if you want to hear more about gut health, if you want to hear more about ways that you can improve your gut health, let us know. And
where are you asking this?
We through our digital channels at this stage.
Okay.
And where they were engaged with that, the levels of engagement, not necessarily in terms of click-through rates and sales of products, but the amount of people who were consuming the content that we were providing them was absolutely astronomical. It was way higher than what we'd seen before. So where you can ask for almost approval and clarification of exactly what you're interested in, we get much better cut through. And if I take that to a slightly different example, we often talk about the menopause at Holland Barrett. It's an area where the brand has been trying to champion both education and products for women for a number of years now. But it's very hard to put that into a CRM communication, because what you tend to find is if you base that purely on past purchase, you'll have men who have been buying it for their wife. You'll have women who have bought it, but for whatever reason aren't interested in hearing more about it. And it can become seemingly quite an offensive part of content for some people. Less so now than it used to be. But when you're talking about physical changes, it can just be a little bit for some people a bit too far. So when you're getting to real sort of personal health for people, it can be both a turn on for a lot of people, but also a turn off. And similarly, some of the products that we sell are quite they can be used for a huge amount of general health conditions. If you're buying vitamin B, for example, I don't know if you're there's 4 or 5 different things that you could be buying that for. So what do I recommend to you now? Is it something around energy, or is it something around something else? And so the product recommendations can be actually quite tricky, again, in health and wellness. And the other problem that, and probably the biggest fundamental thing for product recommendations, if I take that example, is giving clarity on as a customer as to why they're being recommended that product. Why is it that your algorithms are saying, buy this type of clothing based on your previous purchases? In health and wellness, that's particularly difficult because of the regulatory processes around what you can and can't say. You pretty much can't say anything. Start from the fact that you can't say anything about anything, and
work
you can roll
backwards
back from that where they're scientific. But for a lot of our products, you can't actually put anything in writing. You can't say to customers, do you know what? We think turmeric could be great for you because we know that it does X, Y, and Z. You just can't put that in black and white. So it's quite difficult to be able to say to a customer, we're recommending you these products because we think it will have this effect on you. I mean, you mentioned cross-category purchase a little bit earlier. That is something that we definitely want to try and do. If you're a customer who isn't sleeping very well, so an example I always go to, you might be buying some sleep tablets from us to support you with sleep, but you could buy some aromatherapy oils. You could be buying a pillow sleep spray. You could be buying sleep tea from us. You know, there's lots of other products that might actually be better than the tablets. But it's quite difficult to be able to say exactly why, get all of that data in the right place to program that into a simple form for customers to consume. It's much easier to just kind of go recommended by us or products we think you'll love. I think if retailers can find a way to add the why, they'll go a really long way of improving customers' interactions with that. And I think customers will get it. They're not stupid. What they don't understand is your full product inventory and why these things are going together. You've got to help them with that, and that's the same with, I think, most retailers really. So that's probably the big one in terms of sort of next phase personalization in terms of recommendations. But it's the bit that's been working well is really around content, where we can identify content that is really associated to that customer. And then probably the other piece is around triggering. So triggered emails always working better. So based on a particular piece of behavior, it could be a transaction, could be an interaction, could be a abandoned basket, all of those classic triggering CRM channels. Probably the best one for us was when we launched push notifications for people who had a loyalty voucher, a money off voucher loyalty. When that became available in their account, we saw great uptake through email, but actually getting that into push has been particularly strong, because clearly people who have downloaded our app, they're already our most valuable customers. But having that, you probably get less push than you do emails. It's just a little bit cleaner for customers, and we were seeing big uptakes from that. So there's always elements of personalization, particularly around triggering, that can be really good. One last example is around a replenishment mission. And you would think that in health and wellness space, that should be quite easy. If you bought a 30-day supply of vitamin C, contact a customer 25 days in, something like that, to get them to buy it again. The issue we have is, and through the insight that we've looked at, is very few people actually stick to the recommended dosage. We've all got that bottle of vitamin C at the back of the cupboard that's been there. And so replenishment is actually really difficult for us. But for me, this was much more around, you need to there's an education piece here again. Why should you take that product every day and make it run out when it should? Because actually a lot of those vitamins and minerals and supplements that you're taking, it's not like a paracetamol where you're trying to cure a problem that you've got. You're trying to build your internal systems to have a better chance of fighting things off and being more robust. And to do that, you have to consume it over time to build up your levels in your body. And so there's actually probably more of an education piece to talk about. Really pleased that you bought that product. Here's all the reasons why you need to take it on a daily basis. That's the piece where actually you'll probably get a better consumption rate for customer. They're probably going to feel better over time. You're probably going to help with that adding quality of years to life element, and then hopefully they will be in a place where they will need to replenish on a more regular basis. So longer down the line, it should result in more sales. But it comes back to why don't customers and consumers actually do what they're supposed to do? And I know that even in the medical profession, that is often the one of the frustrations of doctors, is that people don't take the pills when they're supposed to.
That gentle nudging is definitely, and I mean, what you're describing to me sounds like, from a consumer's perspective now for a second, the ideal form of personalization. Yes, of course, if I'm taking my vitamins on time, I'm going to end up buying more from you, and that's great for your business. But you've given me value in the process through that educational content. And by the sheer act of just reminding me, I don't know, once in 2 weeks, hey, remember that vitamin C bottle you've lying on your table that you purchased the beginning of the year, have you been taking it? Here's literally just one bullet point about what it could do for you to take it, right? And I noticed that in my behavior as well. Like there's things that I'll start doing and then I'll forget about them, and then I'll see a TikTok about it, or a random blog article will come up on my feed somewhere, and I was like, yeah, that thing, I was doing that thing. That thing was great. I need to get back to doing that thing. And it's just human behavior, to forget and to get distracted. um, but what at the same time this also helps me to sort of get some perspective on when it comes to Holland Barrett is retention is kind of naturally built in, perhaps, in your model, if I'm not wrong. Because if I think of people who are into health and wellness, of course, you'll have phases where it's more important, and then the phases where you're sort of back on the fish and chips and beer wagon. But generally, those people tend to be sort of lifelongers, right? Where it's like, okay, depending on which phase you're in, you're looking after your health, you're looking after your well-being, you're sort of going back and saying, right now, this is what I need. I'm in a high stress phase, give me that ashwagandha, or like it's winter, I want to have my vitamin C, so on and so forth. So I can see that. What I'm wondering though is, do you think that's one of the reasons that loyalty has worked so well for you, that you have this sort of inbuilt tendency of your consumers to sort of come back? um, or was it something else? And if so, what? Because that acquisition piece that you mentioned and the numbers that I've read about your loyalty program are incredibly impressive. So I'm curious to know how y'all got all those people on there in the first place.
I don't think we're as naive to think that we've got some inbuilt loyalty thing. The health and wellness industry over the last 10, 20 years has boomed. Obviously, consumers are far more in tune to their needs, and a lot more people are buying into it. But when there is a sector that is doing that, the amount of competition has also skyrocketed. There was a time where if you wanted some of this stuff, there wasn't many places to go to, but the choice for consumers now is huge. And there's competitor threats all over the place. So no, there's definitely no sort of resting on laurels of we've got customers at all. And I think the one of the main cornerstones to that is making sure that when customers do decide to shop with Holland and Barrett, that the service they receive is top notch. You could have the best loyalty program in the world, you could have the best databases and everything seemingly perfect, but if that one interaction with the customer is poor, there is no such thing as a retention program. It doesn't matter, because if the colleague in the store is having an off day and they're not very nice to that customer, or if the courier who delivers your parcel does it in a bad way, and then we don't rectify that problem through our complaints team, that's it. One chance, and it's just too easy for customers to go elsewhere. So first and foremost, the business has been really pushing hard on improving its service. New insight tools coming in, bigger teams analyzing that, getting real clarity on what are the key actions and areas and topics that we need to improve on, and that's really supported all of our operations teams to deliver that, and obviously our engineers and digital teams too. So first and foremost, that's been critical. From a loyalty perspective, it's been a loyalty program that's been around probably 12 or 13 years now. And I think one of the things that the team put in place right from the get-go, which was actually quite innovative at the time, and actually still isn't very common, is we have a lookup function. So you don't need to bring your card with you to be able to, enjoy the offers that you get, or earn the points. So that has been extremely important for participation, not necessarily acquisition, but continual participation. Absolutely, that's key. because it just means that whenever customers are in the store and they've already signed up, it makes it nice and easy.
And they're looking up by my name, my email. What are they doing
Yeah,
there?
yeah, name, email, postcode, if we've got your house address, etc. So
Gotcha.
that's been critical to maintain participation. In terms of acquisition, I don't think we've done anything special. Historically, we've given points away. Occasionally, we'll have some other campaigns running, but it's been fairly flat for a large number of years. What we've been trying to do recently is a number of things, really. One is to really start providing some additional rewards and opportunities for customers. Nothing out mind-blowingly out of this world, but whether that be free giveaways, competitions, additional points, etc., all those sorts of normal things. And then the second thing we've been trying to do is start to leverage new technology in the business. So if you go into our stores today, there's a fantastic piece of proprietary kit that our engineers have built, which is a sort of front-facing customer screen.
Okay.
Sort of portrait style, A3 size, and that allows customers to both input their own information, both when they're signing up, so you don't get emails wrong. They can, again, when we're looking customers up, they can put their information in. But also, the idea of that as we start to develop that loyalty program more is that you will start to be able to interact with potentially different rewards that you might have within your account. You can start to access different elements and be able to view and interact that in store in a way that is quite unique for the brand, and that's going to be something that will develop over time. The other bit of sort of technological kit that we've got is our store colleagues have got almost like a tablet, and again, they will be able to guide customers through their loyalty account, what personalisation and offers they've got. So again, to start support them, particularly for customers who haven't downloaded the app will be sort of the number one place to get the best experience for customers for Holland Barrett. But if you haven't downloaded the app, what's going to entice me to do it? One of the elements, particularly for retail customers, I think one of the elements will be getting our colleagues who are already fantastic in talking to customers to actually direct them to, here's all the offers that you're missing out on. Here's all the recommendations. Here's that content that we know you might be interested in. All of that will be housed in the app. There is a way that a colleague will be able to sort of show that and yes, help them use it at the time, but also encourage them to download and start using it themselves. So I think for loyalty, it's those two elements around technological advancements that are happening, small incremental benefits for loyalty customers today, and then historically just some wise decisions that were made very early on around how customers interact with it. I still get a bit peeved when I shop today at my local co-op and miss my member pricing because I didn't have my little card
on you. Yeah.
Well, there you go. I paid 25p more, so never mind. But it's annoying.
Yeah, there you go. Absolutely, especially when you consider that, as you said, this is all in a database somewhere, right? And customers know that as well. So it's like, why do I need that physical card for you to know it's me? There has to be N other ways for me to identify myself that don't require me, having the app on my phone or downloading, Pass or having the card on me. So I think that's definitely a very smart thing. And actually, you actually touched upon a topic that I wanted to ask you more about, because when we spoke about personalization, we went deep on the digital piece. And one thing that was the whole time jumping around my head as you were describing that was, how do you bring this to the store? And it seems like with the app and with the staff clienteling software on the tablet, you're sort of looking at bringing those recommendations and that information into the hands of the staff. One thing that I'm wondering around that is, how is that being adopted by the staff? How do you bridge that gap in the sense of if I think of in-store staff, they have a million things that they need to be doing. And those days where you walked into your neighborhood store and they knew you and they knew what you liked, and they didn't need a recommendation engine. They were the recommendation engine, are long gone.
And they still are in Holland and Barrett's world. Yeah. You're absolutely right. We'd be daft to think that our colleagues are sort of hanging around the store waiting for customers to come in so they can show them these kind of tablet use, and it's just not working like that. They've got stock to fill, promotions to change, all that kind of stuff, which is always and will be, and rightly, more important than some of those elements. But they still have to prioritize serving customers amongst everything else. It's how they serve that customer that's the important thing, and what is right for that customer. Now, from when you're talking about customer retention, you want to get the best service to the best customer. We believe that the best service has to be around, yes, great service when they're transacting, but it has to be more than that. You're really trying to build a longer term emotional connection. You can't do that in a retail store where you're only seeing customers once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times a year. It's just not frequently enough. So we're really trying to find ways to connect with customers outside of a purchasing journey, and ideally when on their terms. Of course we can send them comms, but really we'd like them to come to us. And so when we talk about personalization in store, what we're really trying to do is nudge a customer towards our digital channels, nudge them towards downloading the app, nudge them to engage with our marketing or sign up to our marketing, by highlighting some of the benefits that a customer can genuinely get if they go and do that. So I think the kind of the journey I was talking about, where a colleague will talk to a customer using a tablet, is going to be a very small percentage of interactions on any given day. It's just never going to be that high, just because of all of the other operational elements. But what is high is a customer who is hitting that customer-facing screen, where we can provide messages, we can talk about the benefits of some of the benefits that you're not getting, and we can personalize that. We can personalize that based on whether we know if they've downloaded the app and are interacting with it on a regular basis, whether they've downloaded it and aren't, whether they've not downloaded it. We can highlight various benefits that did you know you have this offer in the app that you didn't use? Maybe we'll give you those savings today, but don't forget to use them. There's a bit of a push and pull element to that, where you don't want to make it too easy for a customer, because if it's all too easy, you may as well just give it to all your customers, because we're in a commercial world where you are trying to get customers to do something a little bit out of their ordinary. We are looking to ultimately try and improve their lifetime value, and that is only through either retention or higher spend at the time. So it's just always that balance that we're testing through, in terms of what's the right balance to get customers to interact with this stuff, versus making the experience full of friction and too much pain for a customer to even be bothered with. So I don't think that ever is finalized. It's always a little bit tricky, and it's something that these customer facing screens are quite new. We've got quite a lot of loyalty changes coming through over the next 6 to 12 months, and all of that will be a learning curve through our engineering, product and customer teams, as we figure out how customers want to use it. And ultimately they'll tell us through the data that and behavior that we see in the use of that information. And clearly our colleagues will tell us in store what's working and what's not, and probably that will happen before even our customers tell us. So yeah, but you're absolutely right in saying that what has been a great form of retention for our for Holland and Barrett has been our store staff. You know, they're trained up to A-level status in health and wellness knowledge, and that's always been a little bit of our secret sauce. How you digitize that is difficult, but it is something that we're trying to pick our way through, and through the regulations and legislation that sits alongside that, which is the tricky bit.
It's a heady mix there: regulatory pressure, high educational content driven products, bringing the staff into the mix, a large successful loyalty program, legacy systems, bring that all together. Very, very exciting stuff. And I think a lot of things to learn from that. For me personally, what I thought was, seemingly obvious but super relevant takeaway was the idea of just saying, ask your customers what they want, right? So it's tempting as technologists to say, let's use data to figure out exactly what Jonathan wants at what time and when. But maybe if in the right moment we ask him what he wants, we're going to get a much better answer than that. So I'm a huge fan of these approaches where it's not about going high tech. It could be low tech, but well thought through. And I think especially in the physical world, in stores, phygital is a word that gets thrown around a lot right now. And I think the future of phygital is how minimal can you make that tech in terms of how invasive it is and how much friction you're creating, but at the same time take advantage of it to make it possible at scale. So really bring that secret sauce of Holland Barrett's well-trained staff into a digital world. So you're not just relying on those, one or two superstars in each store who really know how to deal with the customers, but make that possible across the board. Very insightful. One of the traditions we have here on the pod is to end with a rapid fire round. So if you're ready for it, we're going to go now. It's just a handful of short questions. Don't think too much. The first word or phrase that comes to mind, have fun with it. I'm ready in 3, 2, 1. All right. If you weren't in your current profession, what would you be doing?
I would be a professional drummer.
Interesting. I'd love to hear more about that. The last app you downloaded?
It was another retailer's app that I'm not going to mention because I'm
researching the competition
about other things. Yeah, confidential stuff. But yeah, it was another retail app.
One supplement that you actually do manage to take on a regular basis?
I take vitamin C just to try and keep the immunity high.
That's the one I had on my desk. Actually, you don't see it here, but yeah, that's my go-to. A book that changed your mind?
Recently read a book called The Power of Habits, which is fantastic. I cannot remember the author. I'm looking
is
around.
That Charles Duhigg, by any chance?
Oh, it might be. Yes, it might
Great
be.
book.
Yeah, the other one I always go back to is a book called The Signal and the Noise by Nate somebody or other. I'm terrible with author names, but that's a great book about stats. I love data, so there you go.
Seems right at home for a data person.
Yeah.
Lovely. And to close up today, if there's a message you'd like to give those starting out in the world of loyalty, customer insights, retention, especially given all the change that's been happening in the last decade and all that's coming up, what would that message be?
Oh, good question. I would say keep the customer experience at the heart of everything you do and the heart of all of your ideas. Your opinion matters, particularly for, if you're a more junior person, your opinion matters. Otherwise you wouldn't be in the room, but it'll matter more if you can back it up with some insight and data. And test quick, test and learn. You might have a fantastic idea that just doesn't hold sway with customers because they don't get it. And some of the smaller things that you might normally decide not to progress with, they might be actually the things that really work for customers. So there's no such thing as a bad idea or a small idea. And I think yeah, just give it a go.
Lovely. On that note, small ideas, big outcomes. Thank you, Jonathan, so much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for tuning into this episode of the Retail Spotlight. Tell us how you found it, whether you're in the retail industry and want us to dive deeper into certain topics or invite certain guests, or if you're a passionate shopper enjoying a behind the scenes look, we want to hear from you. Hit us up with your comments, likes, and feedback. And if you know someone who loved this episode, please share it with them. Lastly, if you want to stay informed when we go next live with the next episode, make sure to hit the subscribe button. See you next time.